Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are finally looking at a Figma figure. We haven't done that in a long time. This is the SP-140 Doom Slayer. And this figure is a good example of why I haven't purchased many Figmas in a long time. They are just so overpriced for what you get. Now, this guy does do some things incredibly well. As you can see, there's a load of detail on there, and that's awesome. But Figma's known for having particularly simple engineering, and their prices just keep going up and up and up and up and up. And while there are really good things about their figures, there obviously is a high price point, and then some really bad things, which I'm sure you've already noticed. This guy kind of runs the gamut. There's the full spectrum of Figma right here on display. We're going to go through all of it. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. While we have the package here, I'll just take a minute to notice the elbow joint on all of the pre-production figures, all of the paint masters, whatever it is that they're using to make these, or to take these photos. The elbow joints match the skin tone. And that would be nice if it was true for the regular figure. I just wanted to say that before I forgot and got rid of the packaging off to the side here. So now we can go ahead and carry on with the rest of our review. This guy stands just shy of 7 inches. That's going to make him roughly, let's just call it 17.5 centimeters. It's pretty good size for a Figma, so that's all right. And then here he is up against Marvel Legends Darwin. He does have some height. Little bit of height to him. All right, so let's go ahead and do a question of the day, and we'll get into the aesthetic. Question of the day: which version of Doom Slayer guy, do you prefer? I do think the Doom Eternal look is pretty nice. It maybe is a little bit overly designed, overly complex, however you want to word that. It's pretty cool though. I like it. I'm a bit partial to the OG design if he didn't have the bare stomach. So, you know, this one's cool. And that one's cool. I don't want to pick because I would rather you guys pick in the comment section below. That helps the algorithm. All right, so let's talk about the aesthetic. They did pack the details in here. Figma did a really good job with the details. It's sculpted and painted really well, mostly. Most of it's really, really awesome. Lots of paint work, lots of detail work. I like the way they did the visor. It has that sort of transparent look, even though it's just shading with a little bit of clear paint, it looks like glossy paint and then clear paint on top, maybe. Just slight layering. Then again, like I said, all the detail work is exceptionally well done. Very, very nice looking. So that's one of the good things. Figma has not disappointed, other than the elbow joint, which on camera it's not, well, maybe it is. It stands out like a sore thumb in real life, and on camera it seems to be doing it. They painted the flesh tone, which is not sculpted very well, by the way. Not very much like actual flesh tone. It looks very much like leather, like tanned leather, and then just bare flesh tone elbow joints in there. Really, really not a good look. So that's super distracting, super disappointing. But otherwise, the paint and sculpt work and overall aesthetic on this guy is pretty impressive. We do have a problem with the elbow or shoulders, which we'll get to in the articulation section. But otherwise, this guy looks phenomenal. Looks wonderful, other than those few issues. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 for the aesthetic. It is everything you could want it to be. It has so much detail packed in, and it's really well done. So that's cool. Now, accessories. Another thing that Figma tends to do really well. They have done well here again. We'll start off with the arm blade. You do get the non-bladey arm, and then you get the blade, and they pop on and off really nicely. You do get the blaster for his back with 2 different arms for that. So that's pretty cool. You get the shotgun. I don't know the names of these actual weapons because I never played Doom Eternal. I just haven't had time. But you do get the shotgun. That's pretty good. I like that. You get a chainsaw, which is oddly realistic and must be something I definitely don't know about it. But you get a chainsaw, and it's done really well. That's very nicely detailed. That's cool. And you get the sword, which I think comes from like one of the bad guys you kill. I don't know, but that's also really well done. You have the little glyphs or whatever they are on the blade. The transparent blade is incredible. The detail work on the hilt and everything, it just looks really, really wonderful. I love that. And then you get this tiny gun here that looks super realistic and definitely like a real gun. But you get that. and that's done really well also, so that's good. And then for hands, he comes with the 2 fist hands, and then you get a whole slew of other hands, all the hands you could ever need. So yeah, accessory wise, that's awesome. You get the display stand, as always with Figma, which is a great thing. I love that. So I can't fault him for accessories either. I think that's really good. Doesn't he have any normal guns though? Does he have like just like a regular like AR type gun? Some kind of assault rifle, as they call them in video games? Something like that. That would have been nice, I guess. But yeah, this is a good spread. So I'll go 9.5 out of 10. Tons of options there. Really pleased with that. Now, where this figure falls apart, almost literally, is in the articulation. Figma's simplicity, though it can be a good thing, is definitely not a good thing here. So let's go ahead and dive in. The head and neck, it's a little bit over-designed. It's a simple joint, but the way they've done it, it's a pain in the ass. It's a ball hinge, and you don't need that ball hinge there. And the way they have it seated, the head it's dislocated from the neck. You can ignore it, but then it's going to be just really basic articulation. The neck itself can move around too a little bit, by the way, but you get very little range. Looking up and down doesn't work other than to dislocate the head from the neck to look up. So, not a great thing there. So you're basically just limited to that. We'll go ahead and just talk about this guy back here. Pop it off real quick. There's a ball peg in there that moves around right there. And then you get, oh, okay, I put like no force on that and it just broke right off. Okay. All right. Well, I was trying to show you that it doesn't move down there and that it does move up here. Moves right there. Really stiff. And then you get what looks like a hinge here, but it doesn't seem to actually work. I think it's just sculpted and then just a ball peg. So, yeah, apparently this ball peg and this are the only joints. Okay, and then it's just busted. That's really good plastic. I put almost no force on that and it just twisted right off. All right. Okay, so moving on to the shoulders. They've done what is like the most horrible thing you can do. Not the shoulder pads. Those are cool. I like that the shoulder pads are on their own little joint there so that you can move the arm around and then put the shoulder pad in place. That's good. It's a little bit overly done. It's a little bit too much, but they work fine. I don't mind the shoulder pads, but I hate that they put the shoulder joint separate from the shoulder itself. It's a tiny little joint with a shoulder around it. So it's really gappy, and the shoulder pads have to hide it, and they can't always do that. So that's super finicky, super annoying. You will be able to ignore it if you don't handle the figure. You just put them in a single pose and look at them from a certain angle, you'll be fine. But having that much of a gap of just unfinished action figure in there doesn't look good at all. You do get a butterfly joint. You get a ball peg that holds this in place, but it really just does up and down. So you kind of get extra range there. But otherwise it's just the butterfly and then the ball hinge, which is just a standard joint. But there's so little meat connecting the arm to the body, it's really not attractive at certain angles. You're going to have to do a lot of hiding and finessing when posing this guy. You do get a bicep swivel out of that, so that's okay. And then we come to the elbows, which are just absolutely horrendous. It's the wrong color plastic. You just get better than 90 degrees. There's a huge separation between the two parts. Really, really ugly. The elbow pad is on a little joint to try to hide that. And it will, again, from some angles, but other angles, it's just horrendous. They put so little effort into making these joints look good, and they don't really function that well either. And then we have to talk about the hands. So the hands are on little ball hinges. That's pretty standard, but they didn't sculpt them. It's just a flat hunk of plastic. So even when they're connected, you just see a big joint with a flat hunk of plastic for the hand. Yeah, it's a tiny thing, but there's no reason for that. I mean, almost every action figure ever has been sculpted to fit the joint, and these are just cut flat. That is very strange, the way they're just flat. Don't get that. You get some good range out of it, but it's hideous. Now for the torso. It's a floppy mess. I'll pull it apart so you can see. They've kind of done it like a Revoltech. They have a big ball peg in there. That's what this is moving around on. And then we have the hinge and a straight peg. Straight peg's okay. Hinge, very loose. Ball peg, very loose. So you don't need all of that. A double ball peg does it. Also, they pegged it in at an angle into his back rather than straight up in the center. So it's very annoying, very, very annoying to pose this guy. He never does what you want him to do. This is going to be a pain in the butt to put back together. Shouldn't have done it on camera. So, moving this upper torso, total pain in the butt because of that angle for that top peg and then the loose joint and ball peg. It's just really a floppy mess. Very, very finicky and annoying. The lower torso, it's not like a standard Figma. It used to just be a three-way ball peg. I don't know what's going on in here, but it's also kind of floppy and doesn't really have much going on. This piece doesn't move. It's not a floating piece at all. And for the hips, I'm not exactly sure why they did this, but it's just got these giant meat flaps. It doesn't really look good in any pose. There's no place that's hiding everything. You have a big open cavity up here and a cavity in the crotch, and they're very loose. It's very floppy. Look at that. The quality on this is just nowhere near, other than the sculpt and paint and number of accessories. The figure itself is a disaster. It's just a big old ball socket, but they've made it incredibly cumbersome. And it's actually a tiny ball with a big socket and then lots of pieces of plastic in there to fill that in. It's really, really annoying to handle this figure. You can bring the leg out horizontal. Goes back a little bit, but only because you have a second ball peg down there. So you get more disjointed joints. And then going out to the side is relatively limited. Really not fun to handle this figure. It's such a floppy disaster. Thigh swivel is non-existent because of the way they did this. Those meat flaps get in the way entirely. Disaster. Knees are a single Figma joint as usual. Knee pad kind of hides it. You get 90 degrees, but it's not great, and you have to have this huge cutout in the leg to make it work. So there's a little bit of a wiggle to it, but it's like none of this works well. You took a figure that looked beautiful and made it look worse in the joints, and they don't work well. What the heck? Or the ankles? They're a disaster too. They put a ball hinge connected to a ball peg and a straight peg for the ankle. It's way over designed. It doesn't need that. Doesn't need that. And then you have another little ball peg for this metatarsal plate. It's in this joint, by the way. It's not even in the center of the foot. It's off to the side. So it's really irritating to pose this guy. They're simple joints, but they're more complex than they need to be, and they're not engineered in a way that actually works well. This figure is a disaster to handle and to pose. If you can find a pose for it and then never touch it again, you'll be fine. But it's so unpleasant to handle. It's hard for me to describe. I'll give the articulation rating a 3 out of 10. Loose joints galore, ugly joints galore, and then basic joints that don't work and are still somehow over-engineered. This figure is a disaster outside of the sculpt, paint, and accessories. And so it's hard for me to rate. Oh, also mine broke with almost no force at all. So I'm going to give this an overall rating of, if you don't ever want to pose it or look at the elbows, you could give it like a 7. But considering how much of a disaster it is outside of the accessories and the aesthetic, I'm going to give it a 5. It's way too expensive for being as crappy as it is. It feels like a bootleg, honestly. Which is weird to say because it looks so good. It's such a weird thing. How did they manage to make it so crappy and good at the same time? It's beyond me. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. There it is. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.